3 weeks ago, a detective knocked on my door at 7 a.m. She showed me a missing persons report, my name, my photo, my physical description, my home address, filed 6 days earlier. I asked her who filed it. She turned the report around and showed me the signature line, my own handwriting. I have never filed a missing persons report in my life. Video 64, Part 1. Script title, I was reported missing. The report was filed by me. Hook, first 30 seconds. Read this exactly. 3 weeks ago, a detective knocked on my door at 7 a.m. She showed me a missing persons report, my name, my photo, my physical description, my home address, filed 6 days earlier. I asked her who filed it. She turned the report around and showed me the signature line, my own handwriting. I have never filed a missing persons report in my life. Part 1. Script. 1,000 words. I need to start with something that sounds simple but isn't. I know my own handwriting. I've known it my whole life the way everyone knows their own handwriting. The specific way I loop my lowercase g, the way my capital M always leans slightly right, the way I sign my name with a line that trails off at the end like I got bored finishing it. Handwriting is personal. It's almost biological. Forensic analysts have built entire careers on the fact that no two people write exactly alike. The signature on that missing persons report was mine. Not a copy, not a forgery good enough to fool a stranger. Mine. The exact same trailing line, the exact same leaning M. My name is Daniel Price. I'm 36 years old. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. I work remotely as a UX designer for a software company based in Seattle. My life is quiet by choice. I like routine. I like order. I like knowing what comes next. I am not someone things happen to, until 3 weeks ago. Detective Karen Solano knocked on my door at 7:04 a.m. on a Wednesday. I know the exact time because I just started my coffee, and the machine has a timestamp on the display that I looked at when the knock startled me. She introduced herself, showed her badge, and asked if I was Daniel Price. I said yes. She asked if she could come in. She sat at my kitchen table and placed a printed form in front of me. Arizona Department of Public Safety Missing Persons Report, filed at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office 6 days earlier. My name was at the top. My photo, a specific photo I recognized from my LinkedIn profile, the one I'd updated about 8 months ago, was printed in the upper right corner. My height, weight, eye color, the small scar on my left forearm from a bike accident when I was 12, all listed correctly under physical description. My home address was listed as the last known location. Do you know why someone would file this report? Detective Solano asked. No, I said. I've been here. I work from home. I haven't gone anywhere. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Then she turned the form over and slid it back across the table. Can you look at the reporting party signature and tell me if you recognize it? I looked. My handwriting, my exact handwriting. My name signed the way I sign it. The M leaning right, the trailing line. That looks like my signature, I said slowly, but I didn't sign this. I've never been to the sheriff's office. The report was filed in person, she said, at the front desk. The clerk on duty remembers the person who filed it. What did they look like? I asked. She studied me for a moment before answering. Male, mid-30s, your height, your build. The clerk said he was wearing a gray hoodie and kept his head down. They didn't get a clear look at his face. I sat with that for a moment. Someone my height and build had walked into a sheriff's office, filed a missing persons report on me, signed it with my signature, and walked out. "Why would someone report me missing if I'm not missing?" I asked. "That's what I'm here to find out," she said. She asked me a standard set of questions. Did I have any enemies? Any disputes? Any recent conflicts? Had anything unusual happened in the past few weeks? Strange calls? Unfamiliar people? Feeling watched or followed? I answered no to all of it honestly because at that point all of it was true. She left me with her card and told me to call immediately if anything felt wrong. I spent the rest of that day trying to logic my way through it. Prank? Possible, but elaborate. Mistaken identity? Possible, but the details were too specific. Someone with a grudge trying to cause me problems? Possible, but I genuinely couldn't identify who. That night, I pulled up my own LinkedIn and looked at the photo they'd used on the report. It was current, updated 8 months ago. Someone had been looking at my LinkedIn recently enough to pull that specific photo. I checked my LinkedIn analytics, the feature that shows you how many people viewed your profile in the past 30 days. 43 views, normal for someone in my field. I scrolled through the viewer list, mostly recruiters and other designers, all with faces and histories and connection networks. Except one, a profile that had viewed me 12 days ago. No photo, no connections, no work history. Created 4 days before they viewed my profile. The name listed was Daniel Price. My name. My name on a blank profile created a week before someone filed a missing persons report claiming I had disappeared. I screenshotted it and called Detective Solano. She called back within an hour, asked me to send the screenshot, said she'd look into it. The next morning, the LinkedIn profile was gone, but something new had appeared. I have a Google account I've had since college, an old Gmail address I barely use but keep active for account recovery purposes. I logged into it to check something unrelated and noticed something in the sent folder. 3 emails, sent from my account, to addresses I didn't recognize, sent at 2:17 a.m. 4 days ago while I was asleep. I opened the first one. The subject line was, "He doesn't know yet." The body of the email was 4 words, "But he will soon." I stared at those 4 words for a long time. But he will soon. The email had been sent from my account, my Gmail, the one with the password only I knew, a random string of characters I generated years ago and stored in a password manager on my personal laptop. No one else had ever touched that laptop. No one else had ever been given that password. I opened the second email. Same recipient addresses, 3 of them, none of which I recognized. Subject line, countdown. The body contained a single number, 7. The third email, same recipients. Subject line, almost. Body, he goes to Pressed Coffee on Camelback every Thursday at 8 a.m. Sits by the window. Orders black coffee and avocado toast. Always alone. Always has his back to the door. Every detail correct. My Thursday morning routine. The specific coffee shop. The specific order. The specific seat. The fact that I sit with my back to the door. Something I've always done without thinking. Something so small and habitual, I'd never mentioned it to anyone. Someone knew my routine with the same precision as before. But this time, they weren't just watching. They were reporting to someone else. 3 recipients, 3 people receiving updates about me. I forwarded everything to Detective Solano and changed every password I owned within the next 30 minutes. Gmail, LinkedIn, everything. I enabled 2-factor authentication on every account. I checked my laptop for remote access software, ran 3 different scans, found nothing. Solano called me back 2 hours later. Her voice had a different quality than before. Careful, measured. "The recipient email addresses," she said. "Two of them are dead ends. Burner accounts created and abandoned. The third one is more interesting." She paused. "It's registered to a Daniel Price, Phoenix, Arizona. The recovery phone number attached to the account is your number, Daniel." The room tilted slightly. "Someone created an email account in my name," I said, "and registered it with my phone number." "Yes, which means at some point they had access to your phone long enough to verify it." I thought about every moment in the past several months when my phone had been out of my sight. At the gym. At a restaurant. Once, about 4 months ago, I'd left it on a table at Pressed Coffee when I went to the bathroom. Maybe 3 minutes, maybe 4. 4 minutes is enough. "There's something else," Solano said. "The missing persons report. We pulled the security footage from the sheriff's office lobby from the day it was filed." "And?" A pause that lasted just long enough to feel deliberate. "The person who filed it was wearing a gray hoodie with the hood up, face angled down the entire time, very deliberate about avoiding the cameras. But there's one frame, just one, where he looks up briefly near the exit door." "Did you get a face?" "Partial," she said. "Enough to run through our system. It came back with no matches in the criminal database. But Daniel, the partial image, the height, the build, the jawline." She stopped. "Just say it," I said. "If I showed that image to someone who knew you," she said carefully, "they might think it was you." The silence between us stretched out long and strange. "Someone who looked like me had filed a report claiming I was missing, had signed it with my handwriting, had known my routines, my passwords, my coffee order, my Thursday mornings, had been feeding information about me to accounts registered in my name. Not someone trying to hurt me from a distance, someone who had studied me, practiced me, become familiar enough with me that they could pass, at least briefly, at least partially, as me." I started going back through the past year in my mind with new eyes. Every interaction that had felt slightly off, every moment of mild déjà vu, that uncomfortable feeling of having already had a conversation, already been somewhere, that I'd always dismissed as mental static. There was a man at my gym. I'd noticed him maybe 6 months ago, not because anything was wrong, just because he was there consistently, always on the equipment nearest to whatever I was using, always leaving around the same time I did. I'd thought nothing of it. Regular gym people have regular schedules. I hadn't seen him in about 2 months. There was a neighbor I'd exchanged maybe 4 brief hallway conversations with over the past year. Quiet guy. Knew my name, knew I worked from home. Once mentioned he thought it was great that I kept such consistent hours. I'd thought it was a slightly odd thing to say, nothing more. I hadn't seen him in about 2 months either. I told Solano about both. She sent an officer to speak to my building manager that evening. The neighbor, apartment 14B, had moved out 7 weeks ago. No forwarding address. Paid his last month in cash. The gym had no membership record for anyone matching my description of the man by the equipment. Their entry logs showed no consistent pattern I could match to him, as if he'd been there without being there. Solano came back to my apartment the next morning with a different posture than before. Less detective, more something I couldn't quite name. She sat down and put a photograph on the table. It was a picture of my apartment building taken from the street, time-stamped from 8 weeks ago. In the photo, visible through my second-floor window, a figure standing inside my apartment. I had been in Seattle for a work conference that entire week. "Someone was in your home," she said quietly. "We don't know for how long. We don't know what they accessed. But based on everything, the handwriting, the physical similarity, the routine knowledge, the email access." She chose her next words very slowly. "We think whoever this is has been building a version of you, practicing being you. We don't know why yet. But Daniel, she looked at me directly, until we do, how certain are you that every person who knows you knows which one of you is real? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Someone studied me long enough to sign my name, long enough to know my coffee order, long enough to stand in my apartment while I was gone. I don't know what they were building toward. The investigation is still open. If this story made your skin crawl, subscribe, turn on notifications, because my next video is already written, and it starts with a phone call I received last Tuesday that changed everything again. And drop a comment. Have you ever felt like someone knew too much about you? Too many details that you never shared? Tell me, because right now I need to know I'm not the only one this has happened to.